Hello everyone, thanks for joining me today. I'm Jan Clothier of Thinking Stamping and I'm an independent Stampin' Up demonstrator from New Zealand. And today I'm going to share with you this little sneak peek card made with the Magnolia Mood bundle, which is one of the new online exclusives that's going to be available from March. You know, I can't go past two things: a beautiful floral image and a distinctive stamp. So a distinctive stamp is one that's got that beautiful etched, almost lithographic feel to it. And that's one of these. So Magnolia Mood, it's a bit of a sneak peek on that. And also I'm sharing with you the card that I've made for the latest challenge at Colour Inspiration, where I'm a crew member. And this challenge, we are working with a lovely set of subtle colours. So the five colours that we have to use are Bubble Bath, Highland Heather, Lemon Lolly, Balmy Blue and Soft Seafoam, and so I've used those colours in this little set to create this card, and I'm going to share with you now how I've made that. Right, so obviously the Magnolia Mood bundle is a pretty big start, but in terms of not hardware but not exactly software, paperware, what we need is a card base. Now I have made, because I'm using these beautiful postage stamp dies from Perennial Postage, that affects the size of my card base because I don't know whether you realise this, but metric cardstock and imperial cardstock is actually a different size, and that's why when you are making a card, and I speak in metrics, it's not a straight conversion to imperial. The paper is physically a different size, and I think these dies are probably made more for an imperial size, so I've had to alter the size I normally make my card from what I normally do. So it's still the same width, 21 centimetres, scored at 10.5, but instead of cutting at 14.8, which is what I normally do, I've cut at 13.8. So width of the paper, 13.8 high, scored at 10.5, and that's basic thick white cardstock. Then I've got a mat of Balmy Blue, so that's 0.5 centimetre or 1/4 inch smaller. So this is 10 centimetres wide and 13.3. Now the reason I'm holding two of them is because I want one of them for the inside, so I'm going to pop that aside. Now you also need two bits of basic white that are the same size or thereabouts, so at least 10 centimetres wide and at least 13.3 long, because what we're going to do with those is we're going to take the Perennial Postage dies, we're going to use the largest one, and we are going to turn them into this beautiful little postage stamp edging, and then one's for the inside. Now, in addition to that, you are going to need some soft sea foam to do all, oh, haven't glued him in very well, to do all of this lovely background work. Now, I used a piece that's about this size, so what is that? That's roughly 14 by, I don't know, 11 or 10.5. Whatever you need it big enough to take the dies. Now, what I cut was, using the Magnolia Mood dies, I used one of these beautiful things here, which has given me that lovely outline, and then there's all these other little foliages, and so I just cut myself a random number of those. I cut, I think, one of everything, and I cut a couple of extras of those. Now I don't actually know how many of those I'm going to use, but I've got them here to use if I want to, so I'm just going to pop them here. And again, that beautiful one there. So that is the soft sea foam die cutting. And then the other thing you need is you need some more basic white, because we've got to do some stamping. So I had two pieces of basic white, a little square there, which I stamped that image, and I used basic grey ink for that, but you could happily use black. That would be fine. I just quite like the slightly softer look that the dark grey gives you. So I stamped one of those, and then on a second similar size piece I stamped one of those, a couple of extra leaves. Again, I don't know if I'm going to need them, but I've got them if I want them. And I stamped my sentiment. Now if you look at my sample, you can see that I just stamped it onto a banner, onto a strip of paper, and angled the end. But you know, I never like to make anything exactly the same twice, so this time I'm switching it up, I still stamped it, but I used the Stylish Shapes dies and used that largest banner to give me my happy birthday. So at the end we'll be able to see what we like the look of better. Right, so that's pretty much all of the paper that we need to make this project. Now, if as we go through this video you see anything that you'd like to add to your craft collection and you live in New Zealand, then of course you're more than welcome to shop with me, and there's a link to my online store in the video description below, and the links will also pop up in the end card at the when the video finishes. So what are we going to do next? Well, what we're going to do next is a little bit of colouring. Now, you can colour using whatever medium is your favourite. I'm going to use Stampin' Blends because I find them easiest. You can see I've already stamped in a bit of, coloured in a bit of Lemon Lolly for the flower centre. I'm just going to talk you through a little bit how I stamp, about how I go about colouring, and then we'll just probably chop the rest of it out. So when I'm stamping, well, sorry, when I'm colouring, so I've got my lemon, no, I haven't got Lemon Lolly, I've got Soft Sea Foam, I've got Bubble Bath, and I have got some Highland Heather. So I think I'll start with a flower just to sort of show you my general theory. There are people who colour way more beautifully than me, but this is my kind of like my go-to method. So I start with my lightest colour, which in this case is Light Bubble Bath, and I just go over the whole area. Now normally I'd go over all of the leaves, but since I'm just sort of doing this as a little demo, I'm just going to do a couple, because you see the blends work by the ink saturating the paper, and once the paper is saturated then the inks, various inks will move. So light to get things going, then I'm going to add in the shaded areas of the stamp the darker Bubble Bath, because you know blends come in pairs, a light and a dark, so that you can get some shading happening. And then because I want to also incorporate some Highland Heather, I'm going to take my Highland Heather and I'm going to add in some little tinges of that in the darkest areas, just to sort of start to get a sort of a lavendery tinge to my pink. And then when I think I've got everything I need, or perhaps we'll add in a little tiny touch of the very darkest Highland Heather and perhaps the most shady spots. Then what I do, just to help spread everything out and to get rid of any harsh transition lines, I generally go back in with my lightest colour and just kind of go over the edges, just to help spread out the colour a little bit. So that's kind of my general colouring method. So, and you can see here in this one how I've done that, how I've added in the lovely bits of Highland Heather into this sort of cone of, or bud or whatever it is, just to add that. So I'm just going to carry on and do the rest of the colouring, and then I'll be back with you once I've done that. Okay, so I've coloured those in, and the good news is, for those of you who hate fussy cutting, that there are in fact dies that go with all of the major stamped images, so cutting them out is breeze. So now we've got our stamped and die cut. Isn't that distinctive stamping just beautiful, the way it gives you that lovely sort of old-fashioned lithographic look? Adorable. Okay, and now we've also got all our little soft seafoam die cuts and our sentiment and all our bits and pieces. So we're up to the fun bit, which is assembling. So we're going to start off by attaching one of our postage stamps to one of our balmy blue mats, centering it. The glue's given us lots of wiggle room, nice and straight, and so then we can attach that to our card front. Now I did experiment with the idea of putting some background splatters or whatever onto this white postage stamp, but it was just a little bit busy, and so I reverted back to using a plain background. But of course, when you're having a go at this, you're welcome to experiment with doing a more ornate background than this. Right, now the fun part, I always say to the people who come to classes, you know, nothing's irretrievable until you've started attaching. So have a play around with where you want things to be. We're going to start with that one. We're going to add in that one, and then we're going to play around with adding in other bits and pieces and adding in our sentiment. So I know for a fact, because, you know, I've already played around with it once, where I want this one to be. It took me a little bit longer the first time because I had to decide where I wanted everything. Now, I am not gluing every single leaf because I want these leaves to have a bit of lift. I want them to look, you know, not as though they're attached solidly to the page, but actually like a real plant lifting up, as if they're, I don't know, blowing in the wind or whatever. Now, this one, I am going to sit there and I am going to pop it up on dimensionals. Now, I do see that just there I've gone over the line. Now, if you have one of these machines, which is a colour lifter blend, you can go in and the colour lifter is exactly as described on the tin. It will just help get rid of anywhere where you've gone over the line and you're unhappy with it. Now, dimensionals, where are you? Now, you know me and I'm a bit profligate with dimensionals, but I'm not going to get too carried away here because although I don't want this arrangement to sag, I also want room to be able to tuck things around the edges. And if, of course, if there's too many dimensionals in the way, that's not going to happen quite as easily. So I'm going to pop in some dimensionals. There is some logic to it. I'm aiming for that curve there to mirror along that curve of the flower. So there is, as I say, there is some logic to it. Now I've got this beauty here. What am I going to do with that? I am, in fact, going to have to trim it a little bit. Oh, I could have been a bit more organised and I could have laid it down before I put that on. But actually, when I'm doing something like this, I generally do prefer to work around the main image. So you see that all I did was I just chopped off a little bit that was going to be hidden. And then when I'm happy with it, I can pop it in there. Now that's pushed that quite close to the end, but that's okay because I'm going to fill that up with a bit more foliage up here. So I'm going to pop that one up there. And maybe I'll even put, let's see what happens if we put a dark leaf up there. Yeah, and this is why I've cut lots of little bits. It's so that I can play around with where I'm going to put stuff. You know, this is, to me, this is the play part of the arrangement. And of course, the other thing that we mustn't forget is that we now have this quite large sentiment to go on. So you see, I could put them at that end even. I don't want to put them too close to there because I don't want to completely obscure that beautiful cone bud. So I'm thinking maybe my sentiment will go about there. What else can I pop around it? So maybe I'll pop that one there. And I've still got a little lacy one. I kind of like the lacy one, so I'm thinking maybe some kind of arrangement like that. Okay, now we're almost done. Embellishments. Now, you could do anything really. You could do iridescent rhinestones, you could do basic rhinestone jewels, you could do pearls. I'm going to use some of these purple fine shimmer gems just to bring out that little hint of Highland Heather that I've popped into the colouring. So let's see, where should we put you? Maybe we could have one there, perhaps a little one over there, and maybe another one, I don't know, over there. That would do the trick. So the only other thing we've got to do is the inside. And as we know, we've got a piece of balmy blue and we've got a nice postage stamp cut piece. What I did in this one was I just stamped that beautiful cone into the corner and coloured it. But obviously you could do anything, and if you've got some of these other little leftover bits and pieces, you might be able to do something with those as well. You know, the inside's a lovely place to have an experiment. Okay, and the only other experimentation that we did here was how I did the sentiment. Here I've die cut it out with the stylish shapes. Here I've just created a little banner and angled the end. On the whole, I think I like the neatness of the stitching better, so although I'm happier with that size, I think I like the overall effect of that one the most. Anyway, I don't know what you think, but you know, feel free to let me know. That's it for today. As always, I'm more than happy to answer questions if you have them, and I can be contacted through the details below this video and in the end card that's about to pop up. As always, if you've seen something that I've used today and you'd like to add it to your craft stash and you live in New Zealand, you're more than welcome to shop with me, and again, the details are in the video description below and in the end card. If you've liked what you've seen today and you haven't subscribed, please do so you don't miss anything new that I do. But above all else, everyone, happy stamping.